Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started with today's recap. Welcome to the Automox Patch Tuesday breakdown hosted on a Thursday. We are covering October 2019, October being the greatest month, in my opinion. In Colorado, it just means it's snowing, and then tomorrow will be like 60 degrees. It's also the greatest month because there's Halloween and pumpkin spice everything. Yes, I'm very basic. I'll own it. Let's go ahead and get started on this. Let's go over some housekeeping. For now, everyone's going to be, everyone but me, is going to be muted to keep audio clear. If you have questions throughout, there's a Q&A little button. Go ahead and press it. Put your question in there. If we can answer it during the session, we will. If not, we'll answer it at the end. There's also a chat box that you are more than welcome to use. The webinar is being recorded, and all registrants, you included, will be able to receive that recording at the end of the webinar. Who am I? My name is Richard Melick. I'm the Senior Technical Product Manager. Alongside me, digitally, is Adam Whitman. Adam, say hello to the great people.
Hey, Richard. Hey, everyone. Thanks for bringing me back onto this Patch Tuesday webinar. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You can tell that I've updated my profile picture so I can look semi as close as good as you, but one day I'll get there. I had to put that jacket on for that.
Well, you always dress better than me, so I'll give you that.
That's very true. Hey, today's agenda, Windows patches go light, yet another remote desktop vulnerability. This one's not as big as the other ones, but still pretty bad. Out of band has definitely become the norm. Apple's pushing security, and then something that we don't cover in terms of our products, but something I feel that everyone should know about is Android 0 days. But October was definitely a quiet month in terms of patching, a gift that we can all be thankful for after an entire summer of massive updates. This month update from Microsoft includes fixes for 59 vulnerabilities, a few of which are rated as critical. We'll go over those shortly. Apple release updates for select versions of iCloud, iTunes, and Catalina Mac OS. Also have a little tidbit for you all on Catalina at the end. There's major zero-day vulnerabilities on Android, and while Google normally just rolls out patches for its own devices, multiple Android carriers are releasing theirs as well. And then, of course, the out of bands. So let's go ahead and get started on those 9 critical vulnerabilities. We're going to focus on a few that really stood out to us. Now, of course, if you are looking up these up within the console, or you want some more information, you could always go to our blog, automox.com/blog. You can see our recap blog there, linking directly to the CVEs, as well as finding the CVE or the KB within the console to find out if you need to deploy this out. But this is all available in the console now. CVE 2019-1166 is a tampering vulnerability which occurs in Windows when a man-in-the-middle attack circumvents the built-in protections. Now, successful exploitation of this vulnerability will allow attackers to downgrade your security features. But the nice thing is this fix is hardening that server-side NTLM MIC protections. That's message integrity checks. On top of that, we have CVE 2019-1338. It's a security feature bypass vulnerability that occurs in Windows when a man-in-the-middle attacker is able to successfully bypass the protections if a client is also able to send responses. Now, attackers can exploit this vulnerability by modifying NTLM traffic exchange, and if successful, could downgrade NTLM security features. Now, this one question we got in an email last month is, how do we define if these are critical or not? We're going solely off what Microsoft says. They gave these as criticality of 1, as in they are very likely to be exploited. And based off the nature of the exploit, they have been used in the past, or similar ones have been used in the past. So keep that in mind as we go through this. These criticalities are impacting both the newer and older operating systems. To check to see which one is impacted on your environment, go ahead and log into the Automox console. 3 critical vulnerabilities are remote code execution. CVE 2019-1238 and 1239 are both VB script vulnerabilities that can be used by attackers to corrupt memory and execute arbitrary code under the context of the current user. Now, if the logged in user has administrative rights, a malicious actor can take control of the affected system. Now, we all know that if a malicious player gets in there, you have the possibility of everything from lateral movement across your network to data theft. all without being caught because they're acting as the user that is logged in. Also gives them the ability to install programs, again, without you knowing. All these updates, all these last 3 updates change how VBS script handles objects in memory. Now, the big one that's standing out to me, because this is the 4th month in a row that this has happened, CVE 2019-1333 is a remote code execution that occurs in remote desktop client when a user connects to a malicious server. Now, once connected, an attacker can run arbitrary code and take control of a targeted system. To exploit this vulnerability, however, this is why it's not as bad as what we saw in August. An attacker actually has to trick its user into connecting to a malicious server that's under their control. Now, the problem with this is this also shows the advancement of a kind of attack. This can be accomplished through DNS poisoning, man-in-middle attacks, or even just basic social engineering techniques like phishing. A bad actor can also tamper with a legitimate server and turn that into an exploited device. This is where we're talking about lateral movement, and they'll host malicious code on it and lie in wait. While an attacker may not be able to use this to force users to connect to their malicious servers, there are plenty of ways to trick them. Users can be tricked, we know that. The 4 remaining critical vulnerabilities, 1307, 1308, 1335, and 1336 are memory corruption bugs that occur when Chakra scripting engine handles objects in memory in Microsoft Edge. Attackers can exploit these vulnerabilities to run remote code, potentially allowing them to install programs, tamper with data, or create new privileged accounts. It's not the thing you want on your network, so I highly recommend that you be patching now. On top of that, over the last few weeks, we have seen a massive increase of critical security updates from Microsoft. If you have not patched your shit against this, please do this. Now this vulnerability is actively being exploited now. Something that's coming from the Department of Homeland Security, as well as Microsoft. Microsoft issuing a rare Thursday update at the end of last month in order to reckon with the Internet Explorer 0 day that was actively being exploited, as well as a critical bug in Windows Defender. 2019-1367 is an RCE that affects the way the scripting engine handles objects in memory. An attacker can exploit this vulnerability by creating a website designed to target this vulnerability through IE and convincing users to visit the malicious site, for example, by sending a link through email or compromising a link that's already built into a popular website. The security update fixes the issues by changing how the scripting engine handles objects in memory. 1367 is actively being exploited in the wild. So please, please, please patch now. Now, 2019-1255 is a denial of service vulnerability that occurs when Microsoft Defender mishandles files. Microsoft says an attacker can exploit this vulnerability to prevent legitimate accounts from executing legitimate system binaries. The update tackles this issue by ensuring Defender handles files properly. I think what's bigger news about this is that these updates were initially released without WSUS or Windows Update capability, meaning that you as a user, if you didn't have a program like Automox, would have to go in, manually download, and manually deploy this out. Now, if you are interested in how you can do that with Automox, we did have a blog written up there. Adam wrote that last week, but luckily, Microsoft did update WSUS and their Windows Update feature to include this last week, end of last week. So you are able to still go in there and use those features and capability. On top of that, Adobe was really quiet this month. It was actually a really big news in the sysadmin community. That's because we're expecting some bigger updates later on this month. So we think that they're holding out, but they pushed out an out-of-band Cold Fusion update end of last month as well. There were 3 critical vulnerabilities impacting Cold Fusion 2018 version 4 and earlier, as well as Cold Fusion 2016 version 11 and earlier. These vulnerabilities are CVE 2019-8072, which is a security bypass vulnerability leading to information disclosure. 8073 is a command injection via vulnerable component vulnerability leading to RCE. and 2019-8074, path traversal vulnerability, allowing access control bypass. Nice thing is, though, all three vulnerabilities are addressed in Adobe's latest updates. Now, remember, that was out of band. That was, I think, 3 weeks ago they pushed that out. Big news from the Big Apple. Well, not New York, but just Apple. Apple products across Windows and OS X have been patched. iCloud for Windows, Safari, and Mac OS Catalina are all available. So Apple's release of the series of security updates include iCloud for Windows 7.14 and Windows 10.7, iTunes 12.10.1 for Windows, and Mac OS Catalina, I cannot say that, 10.15. These updates for each Apple product contain fixes for multiple security vulnerabilities with a full index up on automox.com/blog if you're interested in the CVE specifically pointed to this. Apple recommends patching these vulnerabilities as soon as possible, and notes some of these vulnerabilities can be used by attackers to exploit and gain control of a targeted system. So we're definitely seeing all those operating systems, Windows and OS, be impacted by these vulnerabilities. Big tip on if you're using Mac OS and Catalina and you are maintaining the machines of designers using Adobe products, they're not working well together. So if you're updating Mac OS to Catalina and any of your users use Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop, it is being reporting multiple blue screens of death and other issues going on with those machines. So be cautious, be sure to test before you deploy out. One tip I have for everyone. And then finally on our side, remember, let's just clarify, we do not support Android devices, but because of the severity of this exploit, I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it. CVE 2019-2215 is impacting all those phones listed right there on the Android ecosystem. Google, Samsung, Motorola, LG, Oppo, Huawei, and Xiaomi are all releasing updates for the impacted devices. This is a 0-day vulnerability that is being exploited in the wild. So this is not just a basic update. If you are maintaining phones within your environment, please, please, please update your devices. Now, Google's Project Zero is cautioning that other devices may be impacted. Patching your organization systems should be the top priority on Patch Tuesday. Don't forget to take care of your phones because they are still computers. We tend to forget that. Now, we kind of ran through it because it is a light month. I'm going to pass this over to Adam. He's got a really interesting worklet he wants to demonstrate. Adam, tell the good people what's going on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Whitman. So I'm here to, like I do every Patch Tuesday webinar, to demonstrate a worklet. And this time I'm going to do a little different. I'm also going to show you some worklets that we currently have available on our community page. And I'll show you how to get to our community page and look at all these worklets. And these are not just worklets that I or people internal to Automox are writing. These are people like users, customers, prospects that are writing worklets and posting into our community, and sharing that information. So it's a really good resource. Let me really fast just go ahead and share my screen out. So I'll take that from you, Richard, if you don't mind. Okay, perfect. All right, so before we dive into the actual worklet that we're going to demonstrate today, I'm going to kind of show you what the community page looks like. And this is accessible from community.automox.com. And again, this is different sections you can talk about, how you're setting up your current Automox environment. We also talked about security news, what's the latest in security when it comes to endpoint protection and those latest CVEs that exist out there. But also we house all of our worklets here, and this is the kind of section I want to talk about. And as you can see, when I go here, there's a lot of different worklets for different OSs listed under here. We have Windows, Mac, we have Linux ones as well, and the list just keeps growing every day. Currently, the one that I want to mention really fast that I think is important for this particular webinar, and Richard talked a little bit about this earlier, is the IE11 0-day vulnerability that we all know about that was not released by Microsoft to their normal Windows Update or WSS catalog. That meant that users had to go out and manually download each .msu file for whatever OS version and whatever processor architecture that they may have for each MSU, which could be 20, 25 different MSUs. So what we did based on that was create a one-click remediation for all IE11 0 days no matter what version of Windows that you're currently on. And this is just one example of things that we do in terms of making this possible. And as you can see, the scripts here, you just load that evaluation code and your remediation code into your worklet, and it works the same just like any other worklet. So this is just one good example. Now, again, this has now luckily been released by Windows as through the normal Windows update means and the WSS means. So no need to use this unless you have a patching maintenance window that you need to patch these patches out of band on. So if you do have to wait for that maintenance window to come out and you don't have these IE 11 0 days remediated, I highly recommend that you run this worklet out of band. These don't require any reboots, or it's not in a very aggressive upgrade. So you can run it out of band, out of your maintenance windows for your patching, and ensure that at least these KBs are remediated in your environment. However, you can also wait for your patching window to come around, and normal Automox policies will remediate these at this point, since Windows did make them available through Windows Update and WSS. Now, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of a worklet I just created. And this worklet is more around endpoint hardening. Now, we talked about last week that the CIS really recommends that you patch your shit, right? Patch everything, make sure all your devices are remediated. That is step one to ensure that your environment is protected against these security vulnerabilities that are coming out every month that Richard talked about. What I'm going to do here is a little bit more of an endpoint hardening, ensuring that your devices are meeting certain configurations to ensure that your endpoints are protected against certain vulnerabilities that are out there. Luckily, Automox Worklets allow you to fully customize and configure your devices at any point in time from a policy-based approach. So this worklet will be around Bluetooth disabling. And I'm going to show you the worklet that we currently have working. And what this worklet is designed to do is to go out and ensure that your Bluetooth is disabled in certain situations, because Bluetooth is a big security risk for the environments that have it open but not connected. Bluetooth is particularly susceptible to security vulnerabilities like identity detection, location tracking, denial of service, a big one there, and also, of course, the big one, an unauthorized device control and data access. So these guys can use your Bluetooth network protocol to access your computer if it is enabled and access any of your data from that means. The Center of Internet Security recommend, which just a reminder, the Center of Internet Security sets the benchmarks for endpoint security hardening. So they really set those benchmarks, what you should be doing on your endpoints. And one of the things they do is recommend this, and they recommend to disable Bluetooth when connectable, but not in use. So what this worklet will do is it will disable the Bluetooth if these criteria are met. If Bluetooth is currently enabled and connectable, so anyone can actually connect to your Bluetooth, it is advertising itself and connectable by other devices and peripherals, or no devices or peripherals are connected. So obviously, if we already have devices connected, that means the user's probably using it, and we do not want them to all of a sudden disable their Bluetooth and all of a sudden they can't use their mouse or keyboard or any other peripherals that they may have. So that's the criteria. Bluetooth is enabled, but not being used by a current device or peripheral. So what we'll do is we'll evaluate a device to make sure that it is meeting that criteria. And if it is, we're going to go ahead and remediate and disable that Bluetooth to close that security hole on that endpoint. So let's go back to our system management page and let's look for the device that we're going to be running this demo on. And luckily for me, we're going to be doing it on a Mac device, and we're going to be using my device that we're currently on. So we look down to the associated policies. We can see our worklet here, disable Bluetooth on Mac OS. And currently this is in a pending state. So evaluation has ran on this device and determined that it is meeting the criteria set by the CIS to disable Bluetooth because it is currently has no devices connected and it is currently being advertised. And if we take a look at my Bluetooth right now, we will see that Bluetooth is currently on, but there are no connected devices or peripherals. So this is a perfect candidate for this worklet to run against. So all I have to do is just click the button. Now again, this happens on one device or 1,000 different devices. It does not matter how many times or how many devices you run this worklet to. So all I gotta do is click run on this device. And then the remediation happens immediately like any other worklet. So let's go back here and now take a look at my Bluetooth. And we saw it on earlier and advertising itself, but now since we ran the worklet, we have disabled that Bluetooth and no other intruders can see this advertised as a Bluetooth hole. and the device is now protected from that Bluetooth network protocol. So as easy as that from a remediation standpoint. I need to stress that you should test this. Hook it up to your Mac device, run it on yours, make sure it works the way you expect it and you want it to work. Because if you do deploy it to a bunch of devices and it's not working as expected, you could start turning people's Bluetooth off for no reason. So I do emphasize, test this out, and then deploy it across your environments. And that is it. So Richard, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. I hope that was informative to everybody. If you are not a member of our community, it is free. You don't have to be a customer. You can come in and participate, check it out. If you have any questions prior to using our product, or you want to see how others are using our product, come in, talk there. Customer support can be handled in there, as well as Adam just showed, a massive repository of worklets and is growing every single week. We're really excited about what's going on over there. We want to open up to some questions, some answers. Let's feed the brain. Let's see what everyone's thinking about. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to type it into the Q&A box, we'll be sure to get them answered. Darren, you're asking, what would the remediation code look like for the broken start menu action center with KB 4517389?
Yeah, so it looks like this, just to kind of clarify that a little bit, and for this, maybe it's comfortable to unmute yourself, but it looks like you're wondering how to remediate a KB that fixes a vulnerability out there. So normal KB remediation can happen through the normal native patching policy of Automox within the console. So just know that most and all KBs being advertised by Windows and WSS will be advertised and updated through normal patching policies. However, if it is something that's not being pushed through Windows updates, it's as simple as identifying the different devices and the different MSU files, and then to actually apply those in the same way the IE11 one-click remediation code does. So you can use that worklet as an example, and I'm going to still your screen here for a second.
Go ahead.
And if you go here, back to worklets, you're going to be able to see the IE11 0-day here. And in here is the remediation code. And as you can see, we basically identify the different devices based on your OS. So if it's 1803 and 64, we then download this MSU and then start the process to actually do the installation. So it is a similar process to this. You would obviously need the different MSUs to curl and download, and then also reference the actual names for the start process. But you can use this as an example, and it should remediate the same way.
Hope that answers your question. Looks like he's all set. Awesome. I think we're set here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out today. Don't worry, you're going to get a recap of this. If you're looking for more information on the KBs and CVEs that we talked about today, please head over to automox.com/blog. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for Automox. We're easy to find out there. Go ahead and join up on our community. We have a worklet webinar coming up as well. You might be receiving invitations for that. I'm sure we'll include that in the follow-up email if you'd like to join on how to write a worklet. There's some big news coming out with the worklets as well. It's been announced in our latest press release that we are currently working on a contest with some financial awards. I can't tell you the numbers, but I promise you it's some big numbers there. So we'll be having some worklet contests coming up, hosted on the community here in a month or so. So hopefully that's announced soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time with us. My name is Richard Melick.
My name's Adam. Thanks again for having me, and always like joining these.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.